Both of these things are really important. If you don't eat, you're gonna die. If you don't breathe, you're gonna die a lot faster. What is it about eating and breathing that is absolutely essential to being alive? Well, we're gonna go under the surface today and we're gonna see the actual reason you do it.
Redeem Academy.
Hey, yo, what is up, Science Squirrels? Johnny here with Redeem Academy. I'm here to help you make the most out of your education while giving God the glory he deserves. We are on lesson 4, cuatro in Espanol, of our cells unit, and it's all about the mitochondria today. So I'm going to be telling you about 3 things. I'm going to be telling you about the chemical reaction that happens inside of the mitochondria. I'm going to be telling you about the structure of the mitochondria, and I'm going to be telling you about a molecular machine that lives inside of the mitochondria that allows it to do its job. Big question today, why is intelligent design a better explanation for ATP synthase, that's the molecular machine, than evolution? Hey, this episode today is brought to you by breathing. It's the ultimate autopilot feature because if you had to remember it manually, you'd be dead by now. The diaphragm drops, the chest expands, and air rushes in like it heard there's free pizza inside.
Where's the pizza?
Inside your lungs, oxygen hops into your bloodstream and carbon dioxide gets kicked out like a party crasher who just double dipped in the salsa. Major party foul. And all of this is controlled by your brainstem quietly running the show, even when you're sleeping and drooling on your pillow. So wipe that slobber off your face, hit the subscribe button, grab a notebook at redeemacademy.org, and let's get going. Have you ever noticed how you're sucking air into your body and then squeezing it back out of your mouth about 20 times a minute? That's kind of weird. Why do you do that? Sometimes you're like in a room full of other people doing the same thing, and you're all breathing each other's air. Gross. There must be a really good reason that your brainstem tells you to do this all the time. On top of that, have you ever noticed how you're always putting things in your mouth and eating them? Both of these things are really important. If you don't eat, you're gonna die. If you don't breathe, you're gonna die a lot faster. You can go maybe months without eating. Most people would probably die sooner. You can only go minutes without breathing. What is it about eating and breathing that is absolutely essential to being alive? Well, we're gonna go under the surface today and we're gonna see the actual reason you do it. So it happens in your cells inside the magic jelly bean of the cell called the mitochondrion. And this is the equation of what happens. So you take one of these plus 6 of these, and it turns into 6 of these plus 6 of these. Now, if you're a really sharp cookie, you might remember these guys from our last unit, the chemistry unit. This is C6H12O6, more commonly known as sugar. This is O2, and there's 6 of them, so we write 6O2. This is why we're eating all the time. This is why we're breathing all the time. And when we do this, it gets broken down inside of the magic jelly bean of the cell. Now, I don't want to write anything else down till I show you this process. You remember this clip? I've shown you this picture of the mitochondria before, and I've compared him to a generator. So remember, you put gas into a generator and out pops electricity. So a device that can use gasoline to make electricity is a generator. And so I've told you to think about the mitochondria as the generator of the cell. All right, so here's a video of the mitochondria doing its thing. I captured this video of you riding your mountain bike this morning. How did he get that footage? And as you're coming up the trail, we're gonna zoom in on your calf muscle. Man, you have really well-defined calves. And we're gonna zoom in a little further, and now we can see blood vessels right next to a muscle cell, and inside that muscle cell, we can see some mitochondria that look like little yellow bugs in there or something. So it's time to take a samurai sword, and we're gonna cut open a blood vessel. Boom, there it is, wide open. Okay, and this is an old video, so it's a little pixelated, but we see these little black molecules, those represent the sugars, and then we see the red molecules, and those represent the oxygens. We zoom down, we can see them a little better now, and we see red and black go into the mitochondria, and a bunch of yellow things come out, and then we see the muscle contracting and moving. And this is the magic of a mitochondria. Let's back that up and watch it one more time. We cut it away, we see sugar and oxygen in the blood. They go into the mitochondria in the muscle cell, and out pops all the yellow ATP going into the muscle, making the muscle contract. So there's a few things I'd like to highlight here. One is that you as a human have oxygen and sugar in your bloodstream. So this is why you breathe 20 times a minute. You have to keep a certain amount of oxygen in your blood at all times. Otherwise, you can't give oxygen to your cells to keep making ATP. And you have to eat pretty regularly to keep sugar in your blood. If your blood sugar goes to 0 or close to 0, you will die.
Don't die.
And we see this is a blood vessel of a normal person, and so their blood sugar and their oxygen comes out of their blood vessel, goes into their muscle tissue while they're riding the mountain bike, and out pops a whole bunch of ATP. Now notice what else just popped out. This guy right here is not one of the things that went in. He's a carbon dioxide. And this guy right here is not one of the things that just went in. He's a water molecule. Now look back at our notes. We had that 6-carbon molecule in our notes already. We had a bunch of oxygens in our notes already. But then we show that waters and carbon dioxides came out of the reaction. So the purpose of this magic jelly bean is to make ATPs. Now I'm going to write up here how mitochondria make ATP. What happens is we have some things that go into the mitochondria. So I'm going to draw an arrow here. We have C6H12O6 plus 6O2 that go into the mitochondria. And then out of the mitochondria, the chemical reactions happen inside of the mitochondria. And then out of the mitochondria come 6 molecules of CO2 and 6 molecules of H2O. And in the process, 36 ATP can be recharged and turned back into ATP. Now we go up here and we can finish off our reaction. 6 H2Os and 6 CO2s. So this is amazing. Your mitochondria are like little test tubes where chemical reactions can happen in a controlled place, and then ATPs can simultaneously steal the energy from that sugar as it's broken down and be made into ATPs. The chemical reactions that happen in the mitochondria are called cellular respiration. Let's go write that down. All right, now let's look back and see this again. We cut open the blood vessel, we see sugar and oxygen coming out of the blood vessel. They go into the mitochondria, and then out of the mitochondria pops 36 ATP, and it goes into the muscle and causes the muscle to contract. And remember, the muscle contracting is the muscle of you riding your mountain bike up the trail as I was hiding in the bushes staring at you. Totally normal behavior from your science teacher.
It must have been the wind.
Okay, now those ATP that get made, let's watch it one more time. Those ATP that get made by the mitochondria, they go into the muscle tissue. They cause the muscle tissue to contract. Do you remember the creepy place where this happens? You thought you'd never have to watch this creepy thing again. You were wrong. So this is the secret to why you are sucking air right now and why you constantly crave tacos. You need sugar, you need oxygen to power your mitochondria, and every one of the cells in your body has mitochondria, and those mitochondria are constantly pumping out ATP. All right, let's review the equations of cellular respiration. When the mitochondria is running on sugar, the two things that go into the mitochondria are C6H12O6 and 6O2. The two products that come out of the mitochondria are 6H2O and 6CO2. And the number of ATP you can make from one molecule of sugar, 36. All right, let's review the mitochondria, thinking of it as a generator. So when you think of the mitochondria as a generator, the gas that you got to put into that thing is sugar, and the electricity that comes out is ATP. Now, let's go write down a few of the names of the structures on the mitochondria. So, a few interesting things about the mitochondria. It has its own DNA, and it's circular. It's not all the DNA that you need for a mitochondria, but some of it. It has these little things called granules. And then probably the most important thing is that it has both an inner and an outer membrane. So right here, this is the outer membrane. And then we're going to say right here, that's the inner membrane. And then all the stuff that I colored brown is called the intramembrane space. It's all brown. So I'm going to just draw an arrow to that. It's called the intramembrane space. So the intramembrane space is like in between the outside and the inside. It's just the in-between space. And that's going to become very important when I tell you about the magic broccoli of the mitochondria. The magic jelly bean has its own magic broccoli. Ooh, magic broccoli. Okay, so this magic broccoli, I'm going to show you a video of it in a second, but it's called ATP synthase. And it's found everywhere on the inner membrane. It goes across the inner membrane. So I'm going to draw it all over the inner membrane.
A million years later.
All right, and I'm going to take an arrow and I'm just going to point at one of them and I'm going to say ATP synthase. So there are literally thousands of ATP synthases in the membrane. Okay, I wouldn't take so much time to tell you about ATP synthase, except that it's a little molecular machine that is so complex and so sophisticated, it just speaks of design, intelligent design. It's one of the most sophisticated little motors inside of the cell, if not the most sophisticated motor inside of the cell, and it does things that just make scientists scratch their heads in disbelief because it is so phenomenal. And when we find a little machine like this inside of our cells, it makes the idea of evolution just seem completely impossible. Just remembered, I gotta show you a video about turbines first. And you maybe have heard of turbines when you've heard of dams. So we're gonna watch a video about a dam, and then we're gonna watch a video about ATP synthase. Here we go.
To generate hydroelectric energy, you need two things: an abundant supply of water and an elevation to drop it from. Building a dam creates both. The dam creates a reservoir, which stores water until it's ready to use. Water enters the generating system through a series of giant intake pipes. It then travels down a steep pipe called a penstock, creating a massive column of water with a huge amount of force. At the base of the penstock, the water passes through a turbine. The giant blades rotate the drive shaft in the turbine, which is connected to a large generator. This converts the mechanical energy into electricity.
Boom, there you go. So, a couple things. One, dams can use water falling downhill to generate electricity. Two, don't swim right in front of the dam unless you want to get sucked into the turbines and get turned into fish food. But it's the spinning of a turbine that can be used to transfer energy from one type to another type. That's where ATP synthase comes in. ATP synthase is the magic piece of spinning broccoli inside the mitochondria. And so look at this little guy. He's spinning around, being an awesome little piece of broccoli made out of protein though. He's the protein broccoli. And he spins. He's inside the inner membrane of the mitochondria and he's spinning around. He's being spun because you ate food, and that food is used to produce a flow of protons, which is actually acid. And so there's this giant flow of acid, and it takes ADP and a phosphate and pinches them together and boop, bam, makes ATP. That was beautiful. Just glorious. And another one comes in, does the same thing. Now this is a top view, and we can see there's actually 3 spots where they come in. Do you see the 3 spots where they're coming in? And they come in, and they don't come in like one every 5 seconds. They come in like 400 a second. One ATP synthase can make 1200 ATP every second. And there are hundreds of ATP synthases, or probably thousands. I think there's like 10,000. I looked it up. It's like 10,000 ATP synthases in every mitochondria. That is amazing. That little molecular machine was made by God. Okay, so we have ADP that flies in, ADP plus a phosphate flies in, and then out flies ATP at the end. And all these little green guys are all ATP synthases. When ATP synthase is spinning, ADP and a phosphate turn into ATP. It's located in the inner membrane. Where does it get its energy to spin? So I didn't spend any time talking about this, but in the very center of the mitochondria, there are chemical reactions that happen that fill up the intramembrane space with acid. And it's that acid wanting to push itself back into the middle that spins the turbine. So it's the food you eat that creates acid on the outside that wants to spin the turbine to get back to the middle. So the spinning energy comes from a flow of acid. And the pressure to push that river of acid really comes from the food that we eat, whether it's protein, carbs, or fat. What a time to be alive. Most people throughout human history have never had any understanding of this. We can now look down under the surface of cells even. People didn't even get to know that cells existed for most of human history. Now we can look under the surface of cells, even under the surface of the mitochondria, and we can see these amazing molecular machines that God has created. It should lead us to worship. Like, oh my gosh, God, you are so great. You are so wise. The things you have made are so exquisite.
God's masterpiece at work.
Back to the big question. Why is intelligent design a better explanation for ATP synthase than evolution? Evolution is a fairy tale for atheists. And it's a nice story. It gives atheists meaning for their lives. But evolution has no explanation for where something like ATP synthase would come from. There is no step-by-step method that you could produce ATP synthase. The whole thing has to function all at once. Maybe you remember learning about this from me earlier, irreducible complexity, like a mousetrap. A mousetrap is not useful unless it has all of its parts. How much more is ATP synthase not useful unless it has all of its functioning parts? Why would you want part of ATP synthase embedded in a mitochondria in a cell if it can't make ATP? There's no reason for it. The only explanation is that an intelligent agent built ATP synthase from the beginning all the way with all of its function. Intelligent design is the explanation for molecular machines like ATP synthase. And we look at them and they're supposed to lead us to God. God built these things into his creation so that we would find them, see them, and know that he's there. I don't know if you can tell. I'm a little passionate about stuff like this.
I am a nerd from the Nerd Brigade.
Hope this was a great lesson for you. As always, peace out, Brown Trout.